I stood in that restaurant, surrounded by strangers' pitying stares, holding 2 pieces of what used to be my credit card. My own daughter had just snapped it in half and thrown it at my feet like garbage. "Learn to live without my money!" she screamed before storming out with her family. My money. The money I'd spent 40 years earning as a schoolteacher. The money I'd been pouring into her life for decades while my own savings account bled dry. That moment of humiliation became the moment everything changed. Because the next day, I made a decision that would alter both our lives forever. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Margaret Thompson, but everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 68 years old, and for 40 of those years, I stood in front of classrooms teaching children to read, to think, to dream. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. My late husband Daniel and I had been careful with our money saved for retirement, and I had my pension and a decent nest egg when he passed 5 years ago. I had one child, one daughter. Jenny, was supposed to be my joy, my legacy, the reason all those years of hard work mattered. Instead, she became my greatest heartbreak. It didn't start out that way, of course. These things never do. When Jenny was young, she was sweet and bright, maybe a little spoiled, but what only child isn't? After Daniel died, I threw myself into helping her even more. She had 2 children of her own by then, Emma and Tyler, and I told myself I was being a good mother and grandmother by helping out. First, it was just covering the private school tuition for the kids. Jenny and her husband Brad both worked good jobs. She was a marketing manager, he was in sales. But they said the tuition was stretching them thin. I understood. Quality education matters. I'd built my whole life around that belief. Then it was help with the mortgage when Brad's commission had a bad quarter. Then it was the vacation to Hawaii because the kids need experiences, Mom, not just things. Then it was the new car because Jenny's was embarrassing to drive to her corporate meetings. Then it was the kitchen renovation, the designer clothes, the country club membership. Each time Jenny had a reason. Each time I told myself I was helping family. Each time, I watched another chunk of my retirement savings disappear. My friends tried to warn me. Linda from my book club pulled me aside one day and said, "Maggie, honey, you're working part-time at the library at 68 years old. You should be traveling, enjoying life. Why are you still working?" I'd made excuses. Said I liked staying busy. Said I wanted to contribute. The truth was, I needed the extra money because I'd given so much of mine away. But I kept quiet about it. There's a special kind of shame that comes with admitting your child is using you. You blame yourself. You think, where did I go wrong? What kind of mother raises a daughter who only calls when she needs money? 3 weeks ago, everything came to a head. Jenny called on a Tuesday morning, which was unusual. She usually texted, "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight. My heart sank. Those words never meant anything good. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Brad and I want to take the kids to Europe this summer. It's educational, Mom. Emma's studying French and Tyler wants to see the historical sites. But it's expensive, about $15,000 for all of us. We were hoping you could help." $15,000. I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Daniel and I had eaten breakfast together for 30 years. I looked at the stack of bills sitting there. My property tax was due. I needed a new roof. The leak in the spare bedroom was getting worse. My own car was making a noise that the mechanic said would cost $1,200 to fix. "Jenny, that's a lot of money." "I know, but you always say education is important. This is educational? And it might be the last family vacation before Emma goes to college. Please, Mom, we never ask you for anything. I never ask for anything." I'd given her over $200,000 in the past 5 years alone. I'd calculated it one sleepless night, adding up all the checks, the credit card payments, the transfers. But she was my daughter, my only child. "Let me think about it," I said. "Think fast," she replied, her voice cooling. "We need to book by Friday to get the good rate." She hung up before I could respond. I did think about it. I thought about it for 3 days. I thought about how I couldn't remember the last time Jenny had called just to ask how I was. I thought about how she'd canceled our last 3 lunch dates because something came up. I thought about how my grandchildren barely knew me anymore because every interaction had become about what I could buy them. On Friday, I called her back. "Jenny, I can't do the Europe trip. I'm sorry, but I just don't have that kind of money right now. I have my own expenses and..." "Are you serious?" Her voice was sharp, angry. "After everything Brad and I do for you, what do you do for me?" The question came out before I could stop it, silence on the other end. "Then, we include you in family events, Mom. We let you be part of the kids' lives. Do you know how many grandparents don't even get that? Let me be part of my own grandchildren's lives. I'm sorry, Jenny. The answer is no, fine. The word was ice cold. But don't come crying to me when you need something. She hung up. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt sick. But I'd done it. I'd finally said no. I thought that was the hard part. I had no idea what was coming next. The following week passed in uncomfortable silence. Jenny didn't call, she didn't text. It was like I'd ceased to exist. Then, on Wednesday afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Jenny, family dinner at Romano's this Saturday, 6 p.m. The kids want to see you. My heart lifted despite everything. Maybe she'd thought about it. Maybe we could talk, work things out. Maybe I'd been too harsh. I texted back immediately. I'll be there. Looking forward to it. No response. Saturday arrived and I took care getting ready. I wore the blue blouse Emma had once said made my eyes look pretty. I brought small gifts for the kids. Nothing expensive, just books I thought they'd like. Tyler loved science fiction, and Emma had mentioned wanting to read more poetry. I arrived at Romano's at 10 minutes to 6. It was one of those trendy Italian places with exposed brick and dim lighting, the kind of restaurant where entries cost $30 and portions were small. The kind of place Jenny loved and I found overpriced. The hostess led me to a table in the middle of the dining room. Jenny and Brad were already there with Emma and Tyler. Jenny's smile was bright, but it didn't reach her eyes. Hi, Mom. She stood and gave me a quick hug that felt performative. So glad you could make it. I hugged my grandchildren, settled into my seat, and tried to ignore the knot in my stomach. Dinner started normally enough. We ordered. Jenny and Brad got expensive steaks, the kids got pasta, and I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a simple chicken dish. Old habits. So, Mom, Jenny said as we waited for our food. Her voice overly cheerful. Brad got a promotion. Isn't that wonderful? That's excellent news, I said, genuinely pleased. Congratulations, Brad. Brad nodded, barely looking up from his phone. He'd never been particularly warm toward me, especially after I'd stopped being quite so generous. Yes, it comes with a nice raise, Jenny continued. Which is good because we've had to cut back on so many things lately. Her emphasis on the last words was pointed. I didn't take the bait. Well, a promotion is always good news. Emma, my sweet 16-year-old granddaughter, tried to change the subject. Grandma, I got an A on my French exam. I wanted to tell you. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, well, she would have done even better if she could have practiced with actual French people, Jenny interjected. You know, on a trip to France. But we couldn't afford that this year. There it was. Tyler, who was 14 and usually glued to his phone, even looked up, sensing the tension. Jenny, I said quietly, can we not do this here? Do what, Mom? Talk about reality. About how you've suddenly decided to stop being part of this family. That's not fair, and you know it. Our food arrived, and for a few minutes, we ate in tense silence. I could feel the eyes of nearby diners on us. The knot in my stomach had grown into a full-blown ache. Then Jenny ordered dessert. And another bottle of wine for the table, and appetizers we didn't need. I watched the check grow, anxiety mounting. When the bill came, Jenny pushed it toward me with that same brittle smile. Your treat, Mom, like old times. My mouth went dry. The total was over $400. Jenny, I don't think I can cover all of this. What do you mean you can't? Her voice rose slightly. You always pay when we have family dinners. I know, but that was when. When what? When you still loved us. When we still mattered to you. That's not what I meant. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my wallet. I'm on a fixed income, and this is very expensive. Maybe we could split it. Brad laughed, actually laughed. Split it. You're the one with the pension and the paid-off house. We've got 2 kids to raise, a mortgage, car payments. I have expenses too, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need a new roof. My car needs repairs. I'm trying to be more careful with my money. Jenny's face had gone red. Careful with your money? Yo, your money? That's rich, Mom. After Dad died, we were there for you. We included you in everything. We made sure you weren't alone. And this is how you repay us. Janny, please. Emma touched her mother's arm. People are staring. They were. The entire restaurant had gone quiet, watching our table. I pulled out my credit card with trembling hands. I'll pay, it's fine. I handed it to the waiter, praying it would go through. I'd set a spending limit on it last month, trying to control my expenses. The limit was $300 at restaurants. The waiter came back a minute later, looking uncomfortable. Mom, I'm sorry, but your card was declined. Would you like to try another one? The blood drained from my face. I had another card, but it was for emergencies only, and I was trying to pay down the balance. Declined. Jenny's voice could have cut glass. Your card was declined. I set a limit. I stammered. For budgeting. I have another? A limit? You set a limit? Jenny stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Every eye in the restaurant was on us now. You have a limit for your own family, but I bet you don't have a limit for yourself, do you? For your little book club lunches and your library coffee. Jenny, that's not. She reached across the table and snatched my credit card from my hand. Before I could react, she held it up in front of my face and snapped it in half. The crack echoed in the silent restaurant. "Dear," she screamed. "Learn to live without my money, Mom, since that's clearly all you care about." "Money?" She threw both pieces at me. They hit my chest and clattered onto the table, landing in what was left of my chicken. "Let's go," she snapped at Brad and the kids. "We're not staying here with someone who values dollars over her own family." Brad threw some cash on the table, enough to cover their meals but not mine or the tip, and stood up. Tyler followed immediately, looking mortified. Emma hesitated. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Grandma." "No." Jenny grabbed her daughter's arm and practically dragged her toward the exit. And then they were gone. I sat there alone, surrounded by strangers' stares and whispers, holding 2 pieces of my broken credit card. The waiter approached cautiously. "Mom, about the bill, I have another card," I whispered, fumbling in my purse. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I paid with my emergency card. I left a generous tip because I felt sorry for the waiter. Then I walked out of that restaurant with what little dignity I had left. I drove home in a fog. I don't even remember the drive. One moment I was starting my car in the parking lot, the next I was sitting in my driveway, staring at my dark house. I went inside, turned on one lamp, and sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I did breakfast with Daniel 1,000 times. The same table where Jenny had done her homework as a child. The same table where I'd written checks for her over and over and over again. I looked at the 2 pieces of my credit card lying on the table in front of me. Learn to live without my money. Her money. I didn't cry, I was beyond crying. I just sat there in the quiet house, listening to the clock tick, wondering how I'd gotten here. Wondering how I'd raised a daughter who could do that to me. Wondering what happened next. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of that dinner, every word, every look. The sound of that credit card snapping in half. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and made tea. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and did something I should have done years ago. I looked at my finances. Really looked at them. My retirement account that should have had over $300,000 in it. Down to $78,000. My savings account. Less than $5,000. I had my pension, thank God, but it barely covered my basic expenses, especially with the property tax coming due, and that roof repair I couldn't put off much longer. I'd given Jenny $243,000 over the past 5 years. $243,000. I sat back, the number hitting me like a physical blow. That was money Daniel and I had saved penny by penny. Money we'd set aside so I could live comfortably in my old age, so I wouldn't be a burden on anyone. And I'd given it away to a daughter who screamed at me in a restaurant and called it her money. The sun came up, and I was still sitting there numb. I knew I needed to do something. I needed to make changes. But I was exhausted, overwhelmed, and honestly, I didn't know where to start. That morning, I did something I rarely did. I called in sick to my part-time library job. I couldn't face people. Couldn't pretend everything was fine. Instead, I made myself get dressed and drove to the bank. I needed to order a new credit card, and I needed to talk to someone about my accounts. Maybe set up a real budget. Figure out how to stop the bleeding. The bank was quiet on a Monday morning. I took a number and sat in one of those uncomfortable chairs in the waiting area, clutching my purse. "Mrs. Thompson." I looked up. A young man in a suit was approaching me, smiling. He was Asian, maybe mid-40s, with kind eyes behind his glasses. "Yes, that's me. I'm Robert Chen. I'm a financial advisor here. I happened to see your name on the sign in sheet and..." He paused, his smile widening. "You probably don't remember me, but I remember you. You were my 5th grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary." I looked at him more closely. Something about his face was familiar, but it had been so many years. "Bobby," I said slowly. "Bobby Chen. You used to sit in the 3rd row and read during lunch." His face lit up. "You do remember? I can't believe it. Mrs. Thompson, you changed my life. I was the kid who barely spoke English, who got picked on, who ate lunch alone with a book. You made me feel like I mattered." The memory came flooding back. Bobby had been a small, quiet boy who'd immigrated from Taiwan with his parents. The other kids had been cruel, the way children can be. I'd spent extra time with him, brought him books from my own collection, encouraged his love of reading. "Of course I remember you," I said, and despite everything I felt myself smile. "You were one of my brightest students. Look at you now, a financial advisor. Thanks to you," he said softly. "You told me I could be anything I wanted. You made me believe it." He gestured to the chairs. "Do you mind if I sit? I have a few minutes before my next appointment." I nodded and he sat down beside me. "So what brings you in today?" he asked. I hesitated. Pride made me want to lie, to say something vague about a routine banking matter. But something about Bobby's kind face, the way he was looking at me with such genuine warmth, broke through my defenses. "I need to replace a credit card," I said. My daughter broke it. His eyebrows rose. Broke it, like, by accident. No, my voice cracked despite my best efforts. She snapped it in half and threw it at me in a restaurant full of people because it was declined. Bobby was quiet for a moment. Then, gently, Mrs. Thompson, may I ask you something? And please, feel free to tell me it's none of my business. But are you okay? You look like you haven't slept. That simple question, asked with such genuine concern, was my undoing. I started crying right there in the bank lobby. Bobby immediately handed me tissues from a box on a nearby table. He didn't look embarrassed or uncomfortable. He just waited patiently while I collected myself. I'm sorry, I managed. This is so unprofessional of me. You're not at work, Mrs. Thompson. You're a person who's clearly going through something difficult. And if you want to talk about it, I'm here. Not as a banker, but as someone who owes you more than I could ever repay. So I told him. Right there in the bank lobby, I told him everything. The years of giving Jenny money. The dwindling retirement accounts. The Europe trip that broke the camel's back. The horrible dinner. All of it came pouring out. Bobby listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Thompson, he finally said, his voice serious, what you're describing is financial abuse. No, I said immediately. Jenny's not abusing me, she's just used to me helping. She's entitled, maybe, but with respect, Mrs. Thompson, it is abuse. He leaned forward, his expression earnest. I see this more often than you'd think. Adult children who drain their parents' retirement accounts, who manipulate, guilt trip, and sometimes threaten to withhold grandchildren if the money stops flowing. It's a real problem, and it's a form of elder abuse. Elder abuse. The words made me flinch. I'm not elderly, I said weakly. I'm only 68, and you deserve to live comfortably on the money you and your husband worked your whole lives to save. Not work part-time at 68 to fund your adult daughter's vacation to Europe. His voice was gentle but firm. Mrs. Thompson, you gave me confidence when I was a scared 10-year-old kid. Let me help you now, please. I looked at this man who'd once been a shy, bullied boy in my classroom. He'd grown into someone confident, successful, and kind. I don't know where to start, I admitted. I do, he said. First, let's go to my office. I'm going to pull up all your accounts and show you exactly where you stand financially. Then we're going to make a plan. A real plan to protect what you have left and start rebuilding. Jenny's going to be furious, I said. Jenny's going to have to learn to live as an adult who supports herself, Bobby replied. The way the rest of us do. Something about the way he said it, so matter of fact, so clear. It cut through the fog I'd been living in. He was right. Jenny was 42 years old. She had a husband, a good job, healthy children. She didn't need my money. She wanted it. There was a difference. Okay, I said. Show me. Bobby smiled and stood. Follow me, Mrs. Thompson. Let's fix this. As I followed him to his office, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Bobby's office was small but organized, with family photos on his desk and certificates on the wall. He gestured for me to sit in the comfortable chair across from his desk, while he settled into his own seat and pulled up something on his computer. Okay, he said. I'm going to be completely honest with you, Mrs. Thompson. What I'm about to show you might be painful to see all laid out like this. But knowledge is power, and you can't fix a problem you don't fully understand. Are you ready? I nodded, gripping the arms of the chair. Bobby turned his monitor so we could both see it. On the screen were all my accounts, checking, savings, retirement, everything. Let's start with what you should have, he said gently. Based on your pension contributions, your husband's life insurance payout when he passed, and normal investment growth over the past 5 years, your retirement account should have approximately $320,000 in it right now. He pulled up another screen. It has $78,000. Seeing it displayed like that, so clinical and clear, made my stomach turn. That's a loss of $242,000, Bobby continued. Now some of that is normal spending, living expenses, medical costs, home repairs. But when I look at the withdrawal history, he scrolled through the screen. The vast majority of these withdrawals are large, irregular amounts. Nothing that suggests routine bills or planned expenses. He looked at me. These are the transfers to your daughter, aren't they? Yes, I whispered. Bobby nodded and pulled up another document. Your savings account. 5 years ago, after your husband passed and the estate was settled, you had $62,000. Now you have $4,800. I closed my eyes. Mrs. Thompson, look at me. I opened my eyes. Bobby's expression was kind but serious. You are in a precarious financial position. Not desperate yet, but heading that way. You have your pension, which is good. That's $1,800 a month. But your property taxes are $3,600 a year. Your homeowner's insurance is $1,200. Utilities average about $200 a month. That's already eating up most of your pension before we even talk about food, car expenses, medical costs, or maintenance. He pulled up a spreadsheet he'd apparently been creating while talking. The roof repair you mentioned, that's going to be at least $8,000, possibly more. Your car repair is $1,200. You need those things? They're not optional? I know, I said. I've been putting them off because you've been giving your money away. Bobby finished. I'm not judging you, Mrs. Thompson. I understand why you did it. But it has to stop, today. Right now, she's my daughter, I said, but even as I said it, the words felt hollow. I know. And that makes it harder, not easier. Bobby leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to ask you something difficult. When's the last time your daughter did something for you? Not with you, not in front of you, for you. When's the last time she helped you with anything? I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. I thought back over the past few years. Jenny had been to my house dozens of times, but always to pick up a check or to drop the kids off when she needed a babysitter. When had she last helped me with something? She's busy, I said. She has her own family, her job. So do most people with elderly parents, Bobby said quietly. And yet somehow they manage to check in, help with house projects, drive their parents to doctor appointments, just call to talk without asking for money. Mrs. Thompson, real love, real family doesn't only flow one direction. The tears started again. I couldn't help it. Bobby handed me more tissues and waited while I composed myself. Here's what we're going to do, he said, pulling out a legal pad and pen. First, we're going to close any accounts your daughter has access to. Does she have your account numbers? Can she make withdrawals? She has my account numbers, I admitted. I gave them to her years ago in case of emergency. But she doesn't have signature authority. Good. We'll still change the account numbers, just to be safe. Second, we're going to set up a new checking account that only you have access to. Your pension will go there. You'll have a debit card, but we'll set daily spending limits to help you stick to a budget. He was writing as he talked, and I found myself leaning forward, following along. Third, we're going to meet with an estate attorney. You need a new will, and you need power of attorney documents that are ironclad. If something happens to you, Jenny cannot be the one making financial decisions. She's my only child, I protested weakly. Then we'll name a professional executor or a trusted friend. Someone who will follow your wishes, not their own financial interests. Bobby looked up from his notes. Mrs. Thompson, I've seen what happens when people like your daughter get control of their parents' estates. It's not pretty. I felt sick, but I knew he was right. Fourth, Bobby continued, we need to rebuild your emergency fund. That's $78,000 in retirement. We're not touching it except in a real emergency. We're going to set up a budget where you put at least $200 a month into savings until you have at least 6 months of expenses saved up. $200 a month. How am I supposed to do that when I can barely cover my bills? You're going to do it by not giving Jenny another penny, Bobby said bluntly. Mrs. Thompson, last year alone, you gave her $48,000. That's $4,000 a month. If you can afford to give away $4,000 a month, you can afford to save $200. The logic was irrefutable. She's going to be so angry, I said. She's going to be furious, Bobby agreed. And she's going to try every manipulation tactic in the book. Guilt. Anger. Threats. She might threaten to keep the kids from you. She might tell other family members you're being selfish or that you're mentally declining. Are you prepared for that? Was I? I didn't know. What if she really does keep the kids from me? I asked, and my voice broke. Emma and Tyler, they're my grandchildren. What if I lose them? Bobby's expression softened. Mrs. Thompson, if the only way you can have a relationship with your grandchildren is by paying for it, then you don't really have a relationship. You have a transaction. Real relationships survive boundaries. Healthy relationships respect them. His words hit me like a sledgehammer. He was right. God help me, he was right. Also, Bobby added, your grandchildren are 16 and 14. In a few years, they'll be adults who can make their own choices about relationships. If you've been kind and loving to them, which I'm sure you have, they'll come back to you on their own when they're old enough to understand what really happened. What if they don't? Then you'll know you did the right thing anyway. You'll know you respected yourself enough to say no to abuse. And you'll be financially stable enough to live the rest of your life with dignity. He paused. Besides, from what you told me about the restaurant, Emma looked pretty horrified by her mother's behavior. I bet she's smarter than you think. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that my sweet Emma would understand. Okay, I said finally. What do I do first? Bobby smiled. First, we fill out the paperwork to close your old accounts and open new ones. That'll take about an hour. Then I'm going to give you the name of an estate attorney I trust. You'll call her today and make an appointment for this week. Then, he looked at me seriously. Then you're going to go home and block your daughter's number for a few days. Block her. Just for a few days? Bobby said. Give yourself time to get your financial ducks in a row before she realizes what's happening. Because Mrs. Thompson, the moment she finds out you've closed accounts and changed your will, she's going to come at you with everything she's got. You need to be ready. You need your armor on first. I thought about Jenny's face in that restaurant. The rage, the entitlement. Bobby was right. When Jenny found out the bank was closed, she was going to lose her mind. Okay, I said, straightening my shoulders. Let's do it. All of it. Bobby's smile widened. That's the Mrs. Thompson I remember. The one who didn't take any nonsense from anybody, not even the principal when he tried to cut the reading budget. Despite everything, I laughed. You remember that? I remember everything about your class, Mrs. Thompson. You taught me that I had value, that I deserved respect. Now it's time you remembered that about yourself. For the next 2 hours, Bobby walked me through paperwork, made phone calls, and set up new accounts. He gave me the estate attorney's number and made me promise to call her before I left the bank. When we finished, I had a new checking account with a debit card. My retirement account was now in my name only with additional security measures, and I had a written budget that Bobby had helped me create. One more thing, Bobby said as I was getting ready to leave. He pulled out his business card and wrote something on the back. This is my cell phone number. If Jenny shows up at your house, if you feel scared or pressured, if you need someone to talk to, you call me. Day or night? I mean that. I took the card, my eyes filling with tears again. Bobby, I don't know how to thank you. You already did, Mrs. Thompson. 25 years ago, you saved a little boy who didn't think he belonged anywhere. Now we're even? He smiled. Actually, no. I'm still ahead. You go, take care of yourself now. You've earned it. I walked out of that bank feeling like I'd just climbed a mountain. Exhausted, but also strangely lighter. I sat in my car and looked at the estate attorney's number. Then I looked at my phone, at Jenny's contact information. With shaking hands, I blocked her number. Then I called the attorney and made an appointment for Thursday afternoon. The old Maggie would have felt guilty. Would have second-guessed every decision. Would have convinced herself she was being selfish. But the new Maggie, the one who was just starting to emerge, knew that survival wasn't selfish. It was necessary. For 3 days I had peace. 3 blessed days where I didn't hear from Jenny, didn't have to defend myself, didn't have to explain or justify anything. I met with the estate attorney on Thursday. Her name was Patricia Caldwell, a sharp woman in her 50s who listened to my story without judgment and then got straight to business. You're doing the right thing, she said firmly. I see cases like yours every month, adult children who view their parents as ATMs. What your daughter did in that restaurant, that's abusive behavior, Mrs. Thompson. Full stop. She drew up new documents, a revised will that left everything in a trust to be distributed to my grandchildren when they turned 25. With a professional trustee managing it, Jenny would get nothing directly. Patricia also created a power of attorney that named her firm as my representative if I became incapacitated. Your daughter is going to contest this, Patricia warned. She's going to claim you were coerced or that you're mentally incompetent. I'm not incompetent, I said firmly. I know that, which is why I'm going to have you undergo a mental competency evaluation with a geriatric psychiatrist I work with. It's a formality, but it'll protect you. When your daughter inevitably challenges these documents, we'll have proof that you were of sound mind when you made these decisions. I did the evaluation on Friday. The psychiatrist, Dr. Morrison, asked me questions, had me do some memory tests and problem-solving exercises. At the end, she smiled and said, Mrs. Thompson, you're sharper than most 50-year-olds I see. There's absolutely nothing wrong with your cognitive function. By Saturday morning, I had new bank accounts, a new will, legal protections in place, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was on solid ground. That's when the storm hit. I was in my garden weeding the flower beds, something I did when I needed to think, when I heard a car screech into my driveway. I looked up to see Jenny's white SUV come to an abrupt stop. My stomach dropped. Jenny burst out of the car, her face red with fury. She stormed across my lawn, not even bothering to use the walkway, trampling my hostess. What the hell did you do? She screamed before she even reached me. I stood up slowly, pulling off my gardening gloves. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. Hello, Jenny. Don't hello, Jenny, me! She was shaking with rage. I just went to the bank to make a transfer and they told me the account is closed. What did you do? I opened new accounts, I said calmly, though my hands were trembling. Accounts that only I have access to, you what? Her voice went up an octave. How dare you? That's my money, too! No, Jenny, it's not. It's my money. Mine and your father's. Money we worked for. I can't believe this. She was pacing now, her hands in her hair. After everything I've done for you? After I've included you in our lives, made you part of our family. You didn't make me part of your family, Jenny. I am your family. I'm your mother. Some mother. She spat. Do you know how humiliating it was when that transfer failed? I was trying to pay for Tyler's basketball camp. Now he can't go because of you. Tyler's basketball camp costs $400. You and Brad make over $200,000 a year combined. You can afford his basketball camp. Jenny's mouth fell open. How do you know what we make? I looked it up. It's public record for Brad's company. And you've told me your salary before. I crossed my arms. You don't need my money, Jenny. You've never needed it. You wanted it. I wanted it. She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. I wanted to give your grandchildren a good life. I wanted to send them to good schools, take them on educational trips, give them opportunities. But you're too selfish to help your own family. I gave you $243,000 in 5 years. I said, and my voice was shaking now. I drained my retirement account. I'm working part-time at 68 years old. I've been putting off medical care and home repairs. I gave until I had almost nothing left, Jenny. And it was never enough for you. Because you're my mother? She shouted. You're supposed to help me. That's what mothers do. No, I said quietly. That's what mothers do for children. You're 42 years old. You're not a child anymore? Jenny's face contorted with rage. Fine. Fun. If that's how you want it, then don't expect to see your grandchildren anymore. Emma and Tyler, they're done with you. You're a selfish, bitter old woman, and I won't have you poisoning them with your attitude. The threat hit exactly where she intended. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. But then I remembered Bobby's words, if the only way you can have a relationship with your grandchildren is by paying for it, then you don't really have a relationship. If that's your choice, I said, and I was amazed at how steady my voice sounded, then I'll have to accept it. But Jenny, those children are 16 and 14. In a few years they'll be adults who can make their own decisions. And when they ask me why we don't have a relationship, I'll tell them the truth. The truth. Jenny laughed again. The truth is you chose money over your family. The truth is you broke my credit card in half and threw it at me in a crowded restaurant because I couldn't fund your European vacation. I said. The truth is you called my retirement savings your money. The truth is you've never once asked me how I'm doing, if I need anything, if I'm okay. Not once in 5 years, Jenny. I don't have time for this, Jenny said, but her voice had lost some of its fury. Something else was creeping in, maybe guilt, maybe just shock that I was standing up to her. I have a family to take care of. So do I said softly. Me? I have to take care of me now. Jenny stared at me for a long moment. I watched emotions flicker across her face. Anger, disbelief, something that might have been hurt, then anger again. You're gonna regret this, she said finally. When you're old and sick and alone, don't come crying to me. Jenny, I'm already old. And until 3 days ago, I was already alone. The only difference is now I can pay my bills. For she flinched like I'd slapped her. For just a second I saw something in her face, a crack in the armor, maybe recognition, maybe shame. But then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. Don't contact me, she said. Don't call, don't text, don't show up. You're not welcome in my home anymore. Okay? I said. She clearly expected me to beg to back down, to apologize. When I didn't, she looked almost confused. Then she turned and stalked back to her SUV, got in, and peeled out of my driveway so fast her tires left marks on the pavement. I stood there in my garden, dirt on my knees, and watched her drive away. Then I went inside, closed the door, and locked it. I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. Instead, I felt empty. But also, strangely free. I called Bobby. He answered on the second ring. Mrs. Thompson. Are you okay? She came, I said. Jenny came. She yelled, threatened to keep the kids from me, called me selfish, then she left. Are you safe? Did she hurt you? No, she just yelled. But Bobby? I did it. I stood my ground. I didn't apologize, didn't back down, didn't offer to fix it. There was pride in Bobby's voice when he answered. Good for you, Mrs. Thompson. I know that wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, I admitted. She said I'll regret it when I'm old and alone. You're not alone, Bobby said firmly. You have friends, you have people at the library. You have me and Mrs. Thompson. You have yourself. You have your dignity back. After we hung up, I made myself a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table. The house was quiet. For the first time in as long as I could remember, the silence didn't feel lonely, it felt peaceful. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Grandma, it's Emma. Mom took my phone, but I'm texting from my friends. I'm sorry about what she said. I don't think you're selfish, I love you. I stared at that message for a long time, tears finally streaming down my face. But these were different tears. These were tears of relief. I texted back, I love you too, sweetheart, so much. Thank you for reaching out. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, can I still see you? Maybe when Mom calms down? Anytime you want? I wrote back. My door is always open for you. Okay, I have to go, but I'll text again soon. I held that phone to my chest and let myself cry properly. My daughter might be lost to me, at least for now. But my granddaughter, my sweet, smart Emma, she understood. She saw. And that gave me hope. The weeks that followed were the strangest of my life. It felt like I'd been holding my breath for years, and I'd finally exhaled. I woke up each morning without the knot of anxiety in my stomach, wondering when Jenny would call, what she would need, how much it would cost. My phone stayed blessedly quiet, no demands, no guilt trips, no emergencies that required my checkbook. With Bobby's help, I hired a contractor to fix my roof. $8,200. It hurt to spend that much money at once, but Bobby reminded me it was an investment in my home, in my security. This is what your savings are for, Mrs. Thompson. Taking care of yourself, not funding someone else's luxuries. I got my car fixed. I went to the dentist for the first time in 2 years. I bought myself a new winter coat, not from a thrift store, but a real one that would last. Small things, normal things, things I'd been denying myself while Jenny went to Europe and remodeled kitchens. Emma texted me every few days from her friend's phone. Short messages, but they meant everything. Thinking of you, Grandma. Miss you. Mom's still mad, but I'm not. I never asked her for details about Jenny. I didn't want to put her in the middle. I just told her I loved her and that whenever she was ready to visit, I was ready to see her. At the library, my coworkers noticed the change in me. Linda from my book club cornered me one afternoon while I was reshelving returns. Maggie, you look different, she said, studying my face, lighter somehow. What happened? So I told her. Not everything, but enough. Linda listened, her eyes widening, and when I finished, she hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Thank God, she whispered. We've been so worried about you. We could all see you were running yourself into the ground, but you wouldn't talk about it. I was ashamed, I admitted, ashamed. Honey, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Jenny should be ashamed. What she did to you. Linda shook her head. I'm just glad you finally put a stop to it. A word got around the library and then around my social circle. I was surprised by how many people came forward with their own stories. One woman had a son who'd stolen her credit cards. Another had a daughter who'd forged her signature on a loan. Elder financial abuse, I learned, was far more common than I'd ever imagined. We just don't talk about it. One woman told me at book club. Because we're embarrassed. Because they're our children. Because we think somehow it reflects badly on us as parents. But talking about it helped. Knowing I wasn't alone helped. I started volunteering at a senior center on Saturdays, leading a discussion group about financial literacy for older adults. Bobby came to speak to the group one week about protecting assets and recognizing the warning signs of financial abuse. Watching him present, confident and knowledgeable, I felt a swell of pride. That scared little boy I'd taught 25 years ago had become this accomplished, compassionate man, and he'd been there when I needed him most. After the presentation, an elderly woman approached me. She was probably in her 80s, thin and frail looking. Thank you, she said quietly. My son has been asking me to sign over my house to him. He says it's for tax purposes. But after hearing Mr. Chen talk, I don't think that's right. It's probably not, I said gently. Would you like me to give you the number for the estate attorney I work with? She nodded, tears in her eyes. I've been so worried. But I didn't know who to talk to. I gave her Patricia's number and watched her clutch it like a lifeline. This, I realized, was my purpose now. Not just surviving my own situation, but helping others survive theirs. 6 weeks after that confrontation in my garden, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Grandma? Tyler? My voice caught. I hadn't heard from my grandson since that awful dinner. Yeah, it's me. I'm at Emma's friend's house. She let me use her phone. He paused. I wanted to call sooner, but Mom, she's been really intense about the whole thing. I understand, sweetheart. I don't, Tyler said, and his voice cracked. He was 14, that awkward age between boy and man. I heard what Mom said to you at dinner. The way she yelled at you. Emma told me what happened after too. At your house. Tyler, I wasn't right, Grandma. Dad told me you were being selfish, but I don't get it. You gave us so much money over the years. Emma and I know that. We're not stupid. My throat tightened. You're very smart. Both of you. Mom's been in a bad mood ever since. She and Dad are fighting a lot. About money, I think. They try to do it quiet, but I hear them. He was quiet for a moment. Is it true you don't have much money left? Because you helped us. How did I answer that honestly without making him feel guilty? Tyler, I made choices with my money. Choices I thought were right at the time. But I needed to make different choices for my future. That's not your fault or Emma's. You understand? I guess. But Grandma, I'm sorry. For not saying anything at the restaurant. I should have told Mom she was wrong. You're 14 years old, honey. You're not supposed to referee adult conflicts. Emma did. She told Mom she was being awful. They had a huge fight. He sighed. Anyway, I just wanted you to know I don't think you're selfish. And I want to see you. Can I? Anytime. I said, my heart full. Anytime you want, cool, I'll figure it out. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, sweetheart. After he hung up, I sat there holding my phone, crying again. But they were good tears. My grandchildren saw me. They understood. They loved me not for what I could give them, but for who I was. That evening, Bobby called to check in. He'd been doing that once a week, just touching base, making sure I was staying strong. I had a good day, I told him, and I meant it. Yeah. Tell me about it. So I told him about Tyler's call, about the woman at the senior center, about how my roof no longer leaked and my car ran smoothly. I'm proud of you, Mrs. Thompson, Bobby said. You've come so far. I'm proud of me too, I said, and I realized it was true. Bobby, can I ask you something? Anything? Why did you really help me that day at the bank? You could have just processed my new credit card and sent me on my way. Bobby was quiet for a moment. Do you remember when I was in 5th grade and my dad lost his job? I remember. It was a hard time for your family. We were going to lose our apartment. My parents were talking about sending me back to Taiwan to live with my grandparents because they couldn't afford to keep me here. His voice got soft. You found out somehow. And you started bringing me lunch every day. You said the school had extra from the cafeteria. I was 10, but I wasn't stupid. I knew you were buying that food with your own money. I did remember. Bobby had been so thin that year, and I'd known his parents were struggling. Then one day, my mom came to school crying. She hugged you in the hallway. She told me later that someone had anonymously paid 2 months of our rent. She said it had to be a miracle. But I knew, Mrs. Thompson. I knew it was you. Bobby? You saved my family. You kept us together. And you never asked for anything in return. You never even admitted it was you. He cleared his throat. So when I saw your name on that sign-in sheet, and then saw how tired and sad you looked, I knew something was wrong. And I knew I had a chance to pay back some of what you gave me. Not just the money, the dignity, the feeling of being worth something to someone. I was crying again. I seem to cry a lot these days, but they were cleaner tears than the ones I'd cried before. You've paid me back 100 times over, I said. Not even close, Bobby replied. But I'm working on it. That night, I sat in my favorite chair by the window and looked out at my garden. The hostas Jenny had trampled were growing back. Resilient little things. I thought about where I'd been 2 months ago, exhausted, broke, desperate, and miserable. And I thought about where I was now, healing, stable, supported, and at peace. I still missed Jenny. The Jenny I'd thought she was anyway. Maybe the Jenny she could have been. But I didn't miss the anxiety, the constant demands, the feeling of never being enough. For the first time in years, I felt like I was enough exactly as I was. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom asked where you live. I didn't tell her. Just wanted you to know. I smiled and texted back, thank you, sweetheart. That's very mature of you. She's changing, Grandma. Not in a good way. She's angry all the time. Dad too. They're talking about selling the house. My first instinct was to worry, to want to fix it, to offer help. But I didn't. Instead, I wrote, I'm sorry you're dealing with that, honey. Remember, their choices are not your responsibility. I love you. Love you too. I put my phone down and picked up the book I'd been reading. It was a novel about a woman starting over after a divorce, finding herself, building a new life. I related to her more than I would have a few months ago. Starting over at 68 wasn't easy, but it was possible. And sometimes, starting over was the bravest thing you could do. 3 months after that confrontation in my garden, autumn arrived in full force. The leaves turned brilliant shades of red and gold, and there was a crispness in the air that made everything feel fresh and new. I was in my kitchen making soup, real homemade soup, not the canned kind I'd been buying to save money, when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Emma and Tyler had been texting regularly, but we hadn't managed an actual visit yet. Jenny was still blocking that, though Emma said her mother's resolve was cracking. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to the door, peering through the peephole. Jenny, she was alone, standing on my porch with her arms wrapped around herself, looking smaller somehow than she had 3 months ago. Her hair wasn't styled the way she usually wore it. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked tired. My hand hesitated on the doorknob. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home. Part of me was afraid of what she might say or do. But she was still my daughter. I opened the door but didn't unlock the screen door between us. Jenny. Mum. Her voice was quiet, nothing like the screaming fury from before. Can we talk? Please, I studied her face. She looked like she'd been crying. Are you here to yell at me again? She shook her head. I don't know what I'm here to do, but I need to talk to you. I unlocked the screen door and stepped back. Come in. She followed me to the kitchen, where my soup was still simmering on the stove. She sat at the table without being asked, in the same chair she'd sat in as a child doing homework. I turned off the stove and sat across from her. What do you want to talk about? Jenny looked down at her hands. Brad and I are separating. Whatever I'd expected, it wasn't that. Oh, Jenny. I'm sorry. Don't be. Her laugh was bitter. It's been coming for a while. We've been fighting nonstop since that dinner. Since you cut us off. I stiffened. Jenny, if you came here to blame me for your marriage. I didn't. She looked up, and I saw tears in her eyes. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because Brad said something last week during one of our fights. He said we'd become spoiled. That we'd been living beyond our means for years and expecting you to make up the difference. He said we were like addicts, and you were our enabler. I said nothing, waiting. I was so angry at him. Jenny continued. I told him he was crazy, that you were my mother and mothers help their children. He said yes, they help children, but I'm a 42-year-old woman with a 6-figure income. He asked me when the last time I'd paid for something myself without expecting you to cover it was. She wiped her eyes. I couldn't answer him, Mom. I couldn't think of a single thing. Jenny, let me finish. Please. She took a shaky breath. After you closed the accounts, we had to look at our actual finances. No safety net, no backup. Just what we actually earned and spent. And Mom, we were a mess. We had credit card debt I didn't even know about. Brad had been borrowing against his 401k. We were living in a house we couldn't afford, driving cars we couldn't afford, sending the kids to schools we couldn't afford. And I never noticed because I always knew if we needed money, you'd give it to us. You never needed it, I said quietly. You wanted it. I know that now. More tears. We had to sell the house, Mom. We're downsizing to a smaller place. The kids are going to public school next year. We had to trade in both cars for used ones. Brad got a second job. I had to tell Emma she couldn't go to the college she wanted because we can't afford it without massive loans. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. Part of me just felt sad. Those are hard changes, I said. But they're not impossible. No, Jenny shook her head. They're not, and you know what? The kids are handling it better than we are. Tyler actually said he was excited to go to public school because more of his friends go there. Emma applied for scholarships and got a partial ride to state school, and she's proud of herself for earning it. She should be proud. That's a real accomplishment. Jenny looked at me directly for the first time since she'd arrived. They asked me why we couldn't afford things anymore. I told them it was because you stopped helping us. Emma asked why we'd needed your help in the first place when we both had good jobs. I didn't have an answer. What did you say? I said I didn't know. Jenny's voice cracked. And then Emma said something that broke me. She said, Mom, Grandma's 70 years old and she works at the library. She should be retiring and traveling, not working to pay for our stuff. That's not right. I felt tears prick my own eyes. My Emma. My wise, wonderful Emma. She's a smart girl, I said softly. She is. Smarter than her mother? Apparently. Jenny was crying openly now. Mom, I came here to apologize. I'm not here to ask for money or for you to fix this. I'm here because I owe you an apology. I waited, my heart pounding. I'm sorry, Jenny said, and the words came out like they'd been pulled from somewhere deep inside her. I'm sorry for using you. For taking advantage of you. For treating you like an ATM instead of a person. For screaming at you in that restaurant and breaking your credit card. For saying that awful thing about you being old and alone. For keeping the kids from you, for all of it. She put her face in her hands. I'm sorry for being such a terrible daughter. I sat there for a long moment letting her words sink in. An apology. A real one. Not because she wanted something, but because she meant it. Jenny, I said finally, and my voice was gentle. Look at me. She lifted her head, her face blotchy and red from crying. Thank you for apologizing. That took courage and I appreciate it. I paused, choosing my words carefully. But you need to understand something. I can forgive you. I do forgive you. But things can't go back to the way they were. I know, she said quickly. I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking for money, I swear. I believe you. But what I mean is, our relationship has to be different now. It has to be equal. I'm not your backup plan or your emergency fund. I'm your mother, but I'm also a person with my own needs and limitations. Jenny nodded. I understand. Brad and I are in counseling now, trying to figure out our money issues and everything else. Our therapist said I should probably talk to someone on my own too. About boundaries and entitlement and… She trailed off. And why I thought it was okay to treat you the way I did. I think that's a good idea, I said. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jenny asked, can we start over? Not forget what happened, but try to build something healthier. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Part of me wanted to say no, to protect myself from being hurt again. But another part of me, the part that remembered holding her as a baby, teaching her to read, watching her graduate, that part wanted to try. We can try, I said, slowly, with boundaries. And Jenny, if you ever speak to me the way you did in that restaurant again, I'm done. I mean it. I won't tolerate being treated that way. I won't, she said. I promise. Mom, I was so angry that day. Not even really at you, I was angry at myself, at Brad, at the situation. And I took it out on you because you were safe. Because I knew you'd always forgive me. She wiped her eyes again. But that wasn't fair to you. No, it wasn't. The kids want to see you, Jenny said. Emma especially, she's been so worried about you. Can they come visit? I won't even come in if you don't want me to. I'll just drop them off. The thought of seeing my grandchildren, really seeing them, made my heart leap. Of course they can visit. Anytime. But Jenny, you can come in too. We have to start somewhere. She looked surprised. Really? Really? But we're taking this slow. And if I feel like you're slipping back into old patterns, I'll say something. And you need to listen. I will. I promise I will. I stood up and walked to the stove. Have you eaten lunch? No, I've been too nervous about coming here. I'm making soup. Stay and have some with me. Jenny's face crumpled again. You're making me lunch after everything I did to you. I'm your mother, Jenny. That doesn't mean I'll bankroll your life, but it does mean I'll feed you when you're in my kitchen. I smiled slightly. Besides, I made too much. You'd be doing me a favor. As I ladled soup into bowls, Jenny said quietly, Bobby Chen called me. I froze. He what? About a month ago. He said he was your financial advisor, and he wanted me to know that if I tried to access your accounts or contest your will, he'd report me for elder abuse. He said it very professionally, but I got the message. I didn't ask him to do that, I said. I know. But I'm glad he did. It scared me, to be honest. Made me realize how serious what I'd done was. That it had a name, elder abuse. She shook her head. I never thought of it that way. I just thought I was, I don't know, taking what was rightfully mine somehow. But it wasn't, it was never mine. I set the bowls on the table and sat down. No, it wasn't. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The soup was good, vegetable beef, Daniel's favorite. I'd been making it a lot lately, finding comfort in the familiar recipe. This is really good, Mom, Jenny said. Thank you. I haven't had homemade soup in forever. Brad and I always we ate out all the time. Spent money we didn't have on restaurants and takeout. She looked down at her bowl. We were living like we were rich when we weren't. Pretending. A lot of people do that these days, I said. It's easy to do with credit cards and payment plans. But it's not sustainable. We're learning that now. She took another bite. How have you been? Really? I've been good, I said, and I meant it. Better than I've been in years, actually. I fixed my roof, got my car repaired, caught up on medical and dental care. I'm volunteering at the senior center, teaching financial literacy. Of course you are. Jenny smiled, a real smile. You always did love teaching. I do, and Bobby's been helping me rebuild my savings. It'll take time, but I'll be okay. Bobby Chen, Jenny said thoughtfully. The little boy from your 5th grade class. The one you used to bring books for. He's a good man. He's been a good friend. He loved you, you know. As a teacher. He used to talk about you sometimes when we'd run into his parents around town. Said you changed his life. He changed mine too, I said, when I needed it most. We finished our soup, and Jenny helped me clean up without being asked. It was strange, this new dynamic between us. Careful, tentative. But maybe, just maybe, healthier. As she was getting ready to leave, she turned to me. Can I hug you? I hesitated, then nodded. Okay. So she hugged me, and it was different from the performative hug at the restaurant. This one felt real. When she pulled back, she was crying again. I'm gonna do better, Mom. I promise. I'm gonna be the daughter you deserved all along. Just be honest with me, Jenny, that's all I ask. Honest about what's really going on, honest about what you need versus what you want. And respectful. That's all? I can do that? She wiped her eyes. Can I bring the kids by this weekend? Saturday afternoon. I'd love that. After she left, I sat back down at my kitchen table and let out a long breath. I didn't know if Jenny would really change. People didn't always, especially not quickly. But she'd taken the first step, acknowledging the problem, apologizing genuinely, and committing to do better. That was something. My phone buzzed. A text from Bobby, just checking in. How are you today? I smiled and texted back. You'll never believe who just left my house. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then Jenny? Yes, she apologized, really apologized. Said she's in counseling. She and Brad are separating, they had to downsize. She wants to rebuild our relationship. A pause. Then, how do you feel about that? Cautiously hopeful. I wrote back. And grateful. For everything you've done for me. You did the hard part, Mrs. Thompson. You saved yourself. I just showed you the door. I looked around my quiet kitchen. My clean, warm, peaceful kitchen in my house with its new roof and my car with its working engine. I thought about my savings account, slowly rebuilding. My grandchildren, who loved me for who I was. My work at the senior center, helping others avoid what I'd been through. I thought about Jenny's apology, tentative and fragile but real. And I thought about myself, 68 years old, a little scared, a little bruised, but standing on my own 2 feet for the first time in years. Learn to live without my money, Jenny had screamed at me that night. Well, I had, and in the process I'd learned to live with something much more valuable. My dignity, my peace, my self-respect. Those things I'd learned were worth more than any amount of money, and no one, not even my own daughter, could ever take them from me again.